No matter what field you work in, you undoubtedly serve some type of customer. Many employees, managers, and even leaders are disconnected from who their customers are and how they live their lives. What if you infused a passion for the customer and an understanding of the customer into your business? Can you think of a business or brand that has a culture that is passionate and empathetic about the customer, that is innovative, and that is service-oriented? A triple threat leader will ensure that customers are served with intelligent solutions that are designed for them and that do right by the customer, the company, the employees, the shareholders, and society as a whole.
Welcome to the Leader's Perspective Podcast. Where we talk to triple threat leaders about the people, products, trends, and experiences that influence business. I'm now pleased to introduce your host, Jason Goldberg.
Welcome back to the Leader's Perspective Podcast, where we engage with triple threat leaders to learn about their lives, careers, and leadership philosophies, and chat with our guests about a hot topic in society. As a reminder, a triple threat leader is one who embodies the very best of leadership and who has strong IQ, EQ, and DQ, intelligence quotient, emotional quotient, and decency quotient. My guest today is a true innovator who is beyond passionate about the customers he serves. Ken Rees has founded and grown 3 financial technology companies, all serving millions of customers that he calls tightropers. He is currently founder and CEO of Covered, a disruptive fintech dedicated to providing affordable healthcare financing to people who struggle with less than prime credit scores. Prior to Covered, Ken was founder and CEO of Elevate, a leading online lender that he took public on the New York Stock Exchange. Additionally, he was the founder and CEO of Cashworks, a financial technology company acquired by GE. Earlier in his career, Ken ran CSC Index's West Coast Financial Services consulting practice. Ken is a graduate of Reed College with a degree in mathematics, and he earned his MBA in finance and statistics from the University of Chicago. In 2012, Ken was selected by Ernst & Young as an Entrepreneur of the Year and was named a 2017 Innovator to Watch by Bank Innovation. He is also the author of Teetering, Why So Many Live on a Financial Tightrope and What to Do About It. An avid cyclist and enophile, Ken lives in San Francisco, California with his wife and dog. Well, welcome, Ken, to the Leader's Perspective. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Jason.
So tell us about yourself. You know, where are you from? What are your hobbies? How do you keep busy?
I grew up splitting my time between Palo Alto and Minneapolis. Met my wife in Minneapolis and eventually ended up being an entrepreneur focused on non-prime customers. That's been sort of my passion for the past, almost 30 years now, and currently living in Dallas.
Awesome. So let's talk about your journey. You know, you started at least 3 companies that I know of. How did you come to be an entrepreneur? I think you were a consultant before your first entrepreneurial venture.
Yeah. I actually always sort of viewed consulting as sort of postgraduate education. It was just a way to learn a little bit more, get closer to senior management issues. Always wanted to start a business, but actually it was consulting that kind of gave me the direction I wanted to head. Really, it started with a project I had with a large bank. I was doing a study around kind of branch optimization, so how to make the branches more productive. But when I was in one of the branches, I kept hearing the staff complaining about the lobby trash, and I was,
wow,
what are you talking about, lobby trash? Well, it turns out they were talking about people who were in their branch that weren't customers, but were in there to cash their payroll checks. And I'd never heard of this before. First off, I had to sort of wrap my head around the idea that there were people that actually they were making money on that the employees regularly refer to as lobby trash.
Yeah.
But also just the basic business opportunity seemed really unusual to me. I didn't understand it at the time, and ultimately it made me think more and more about the underserved consumers in financial services, how banking doesn't do a great job with them. And then as I became an entrepreneur, I saw there was so much innovation happening in financial services. It was kind of the early days of financial technology businesses. But none of that innovation was trickling down to the people I thought needed it most. The people who have a lower credit score, lack of savings, more financial fragility, and that really kind of got me focused. Started my first business serving these check cashing customers, then moved into the lending space and have been there ever since.
That's awesome. So you call them tightropers. Can you just help us define what's a tightroper, and how do they get there?
I mean, the world, we all hear about income inequality, but I don't think it's income inequality so much as the unequal levels of stability and financial stability. You've got a percentage of the country that if they have an unexpected bill or something comes up, it's no big deal. However, the people that I serve that I call tightropers are living paycheck to paycheck. That's about half the U.S. now. They have very limited savings, and when something comes up that may not seem like a big deal, a flat tire, even it can sort of lead to a sort of snowballing effect with their financial lives, where bad things happen, and that's really why getting into the lending space, serving this customer, is so appealing, because even a few $100s can make a very, very big difference to get a tightroper through a rough patch in their life and get them back on track.
And they're not necessarily low income.
That's correct. It's one of the fascinating things. Certainly depending on where you live. You live in San Francisco. You can have a pretty high income and still be a tightrope.
Right. It's amazing. And I think what most people don't realize, and honestly, I didn't realize until we worked together years ago, that they're not, you're filling a gap, right? You used the word underserved, and it's true, because the traditional financial services, larger financial institutions in the country are not serving this population. So if they need that few $100 loan or line of credit or ability to pay a medical bill, they're not there to serve that customer for two reasons. One, they don't have the product to serve them, and two, they don't have the credit appetite.
Right. Well, I actually remember we at my previous company, we set up a research and advocacy group called the Center for the New Middle Class to provide a lot of studies into their needs, and then really try to advocate for getting more services. And we oftentimes would go to conferences, and sometimes we'd sponsor these working sessions where we bring tightropers in, our customers, and have them talk to large audiences, typically of bankers.
Yep.
And I still remember one time when one of the people there, is kind of a do-gooder type, if you will, asked the person on the stage. He said, "Well, if you need a loan, why don't you just go to a credit union? Credit unions are great, aren't they?" And the guy, you could tell it took him a few seconds to even process, because he thought that it was such a ludicrous question. And finally said, "I don't go there because they won't give me a loan." And it sort of threw her back. She was like, "Well, why wouldn't they give you a loan?" Well, of course, because if you don't have pristine credit, you're not going to get a loan from a financial institution, whether it's a big bank or a credit union.
Right.
So I think that is really the issue, that we still have our major financial institutions in this country are focused on the old America. Old America defined as stable incomes and savings, and they haven't really course corrected to the new America, which is much more fast-paced, where there's much more income instability, and savings, even if you have it, can erode really quickly. And of course, that's even more so today with rising inflation, gas prices,
for sure,
things like that. We're back to a period where people can very quickly get underwater.
And you mentioned income instability. There's also unpredictability with a lot of gig economy workers working multiple jobs. And so their income is fluctuating. It's coming in at different times of the month at different amounts. So they can't rely upon that steady, stable paycheck that Americans once had.
Right. Well, and then of course, what's sort of interesting is, income becomes more unstable, but actually expenses have become more and more stable.
Yeah.
Because, subscriptions, right?
For sure.
Netflix, Amazon, what have you.
Absolutely.
You're locked in for X dollars a month, no matter what's happening with your income.
Yep.
And, cell phones and things like that. So it is tough oftentimes to match up inflows and outflows. And I think that's why having a healthy, lending products that serve everything from the most pristine credit levels to the lowest credit levels is so important for to keep our society as stable as humanly possible.
So let's talk about Covered, your most recent venture. It is offering credit solutions to less than prime customers in the healthcare space. How is it different from other BNPL or credit card providers?
Yeah, well, when I was looking into starting a business, new business, 2019, there was a lot of focus on buy now, pay later companies, Affirm and others, but I saw them doing sort of the same thing that happens everywhere in financial services. Everybody was chasing down the same customer at sort of the top of the credit spectrum, and it was leading to obviously frustration from the customers, but also frustration from the merchants. They want to get everybody who wants to buy their products or use their services access to financing, yet the approval rates were 40-45%. So I figured there's got to be an opportunity to take what I think I know pretty well, which is how to serve the underserved consumers in this country, and take that into buy now, pay later space. And in particular, we focused on healthcare. Part of it, in a way, was a mission-based aspect. What better thing to be able to help Americans get the health care they need. And what's so fascinating about this business is, we kind of actually make everybody happy. The doctors are happy because they're able to serve more patients. The customers, patients obviously are happy, but actually the prime lenders, the people that are currently in those doctors' offices are happy too, because the doctors stop beating up on them about not approving more. When we get integrated into the waterfall, a
Right.
doctor's office can approve 90% of the patients that come in the door.
Wow.
The prime lender may only approve 40-45%. We approve 85% of their declines. Add them up, you've got a solution for just about everybody that needs credit.
So what's the issue with healthcare providers and the fact that people need to have, where's the gap here, right? So somebody needs healthcare. There's clearly a gap because in our current system, they either have a copay or co-insurance, or they might be under uninsured, and they're left with a bill, right? And I think we've all had, shocking bills from, either ERs, or I needed a CAT scan or a dental procedure. What creates the need for your product?
Well, and I should probably be clear that the segments that we're serving are primarily elective.
Okay.
So it's hearing aids, it's dental work, clear aligners is a big business for us, cosmetic, LASIK, all of those sort of things.
Okay.
This is where you don't really have all that sort of crazy traditional healthcare thing where you walk in the door, you've got no idea how much it's going to cost until you finally get the bill.
Right.
That's a whole different issue, and I'm not sure. In fact, I'm certain I'm not smart enough to figure that out. But what I'm really dealing with is as somebody who actually is on Zoom calls all the day, sees their teeth are really a problem, wants to get them straightened, but it's going to cost $1,500 or $2,000.
Yeah.
we can find a way to help that patient, even if they have a 500 credit score, get the dental work they want and need at a fixed payment amount that's affordable to them over time.
Nice. So let's pivot. I want to, obviously the topic I wanted to chat with you about is customer centricity. And, in my career, I've worked for, when I count up the companies that I've worked with and for, there are four that I'd say we're incredibly passionate about their customers or clients, and each one in different ways. Your former company where we worked together, it was different. It hit different in my mind. It was completely embedded within the culture, and from everything that I understood, you started that from day one. And employees, when they were hired into the company, were really embedded into this. From orientation till the very last day, they were embedded in this culture of understanding who the customer is, how they live, what challenges do they face, how do they earn money, what worries them. How did you go about creating that?
Yeah. First off, I'm really glad that came through that way to you.
Sure.
That's nothing can be more rewarding to a CEO than to see the cultural attributes you try to create actually make it through to the employees. But for me, a lot of it was as that company grew. When you start out a company, everybody's essentially in kind of one big room, right? Even with Zoom calls, everybody can pay attention to everything. Yeah. I hear the customer complaints. I hear the technology team battling over the latest specifications. It's really easy to get what's going on, but as you grow, it becomes harder and harder. So that became a big focus of me. Is how do you stay connected to that customer that's having a problem with making a payment or is frustrated about some aspect of the product. So we started in-touch sessions, so every employee had to spend time in the call center, listening to calls, listening to the customers. Also gave everybody a real sensitivity for the kind of issues that our customer service reps had to deal with. And then also we spent a lot of time on little things that I as you recall, I did something I called Cookies with Ken. We'd bring in people from all levels of the company, and we'd sort of just talk. Every couple of weeks, maybe a dozen, 15 people, and we just listen to people talk about their frustrations, what they thought the company could do better. We talk about how our products could be better, and I think you sort of get that together. Keep people connected with the customers, keep people connected cross-functionally and cross-hierarchy with everybody. You got a chance to evolve. You got a chance to innovate, and ultimately, I think you got a chance to build an interesting company.
And I think I agree with all of that. I think one of the key differentiators, though, I've worked with companies, and when they say they want to innovate, they're going off and creating something either that doesn't exist, or they're enhancing a product or a service, perhaps to improve profitability. But as you did it from the lens of, with the overarching theme of, how do we make the lives of these tightropers better? So,
well, I think you may be giving me a little bit too much credit because I had more than my fair share of innovation disasters. We launched one product that we were so excited about because it was essentially kind of supposed to be a viral payment instrument product. I won't get into the details of it, but we've done all this customer research and talked to people, and they're like, "We want this. This is going to be so great." And so we were kind of high-fiving ourselves. The early research was so great. We built the product. We launched it. Absolute dud. It went nowhere. And so you just can't always tell.
Right.
But I just think I'm going to give you a lot of credit here.
You still have it. That's great.
Jason Goldberg's innovation right here that you did at my previous company. It's a credit card focused on the needs of sort of non-prime customers. And what I like about what you did is this is different. It could have been very, generic card. It could have been, a lot of people do almost sort of demeaning things where you put like dollar bills all over it because you think, well, if it's a non-prime customer, they want to see dollar bills or gold glitter or something like this. And you probably can't tell from the camera, but it's an orange card. It's a vertical card as opposed to traditional cards. It's got this little yellow band around it. It's distinctive, and it shows a lot of respect for our customers and treats them as adults, as deserving of innovation and products that are attuned to their needs. And I think that's really what I liked about the way that you built this, is you didn't cut any corners. You didn't just say, oh, well, a non-prime customer, they'll take any car they can get. You really thought about every aspect of how to tune that experience, from the card itself to the interactions in the call center to the way that it was marketed, to be distinctive and not end up just like everybody else.
Yeah, we certainly had our share of speed bumps for sure along the way, but I think we constantly looked to listen to the customer, and I think probably the perfect example with that product was how in the very beginning we obviously needed an annual fee on the product to make it profitable, and in the very beginning our loss rates were higher than we would have liked, and we drilled down and figured out that it was because of the annual fee, and these customers were unable to pay the annual fee and their first payment in one sum. So went to the drawing board and said, what can we do to maintain, positivity for the company, profitability for the company, but also something that is better for the customer and different from the market. And that's where we went out. We were actually the very first credit card in the country to charge a monthly fee, which the customer absolutely loved and could that was great for a tightroper who has this income. They have the tighter income, or I should say tighter, flexible spending, and so this allowed them to cover that need on a monthly basis. So yeah, that was definitely but part of that culture of customer centric innovation is what drove that.
Accel Advisors expert consultants are all veteran operators who bring real solutions to your business challenges. Contact us at info@accel-advisors.com to reach our experts today.
Yeah. I was not allowed to use the card as the CEO. But I still keep it with me because I really do think this is sort of what I like about innovating to this customer base by, kind of tearing up the old rules and in our space, a lot of the rules on how do you serve the underbanked or the lower income, or lower credit scores. It's typically about how aggressively can you collect, even a lot of you sue people because they're not paying off, or you take their car back or what have you, and I think that isn't the answer. I think people will try to pay you if they can. You still have to charge enough that you can make money, but instead of trying to make money by punitive methods, make money with transparency and respect, and providing a product that's distinctive and useful.
Definitely. So how have you brought the same passion into Covered?
Well, I think a lot of it is the same. When and actually there's a tremendous number of advantages to our business over traditional lending businesses because we don't really have fraud. I mean, that's sort of an amazing thing. Customers aren't going to defraud us to straighten their teeth. We know they are who they say they are. We take a down payment, so we get some sense of affordability. Our down payment is typically, 2 monthly payments, so that gives us a sense. Okay, well, they have enough savings to get started. We get a valid payment instrument, and about 93-4% set up with auto pay off of that typically a bank debit card, and also the merchants or the doctors want to serve the underserved as well, so they actually accept a discount. So if it's a $1,000 procedure, we pay them less than $1,000 to make that loan. So the economics are really interesting. We don't have customer acquisition costs. We do have higher losses because we're serving a less creditworthy customer, but we don't have fraud losses. And because there's a discount on the procedure, we can charge typically credit card rates to a customer that is not credit card worthy from a credit score perspective.
Right.
We'll still make money because the economics all work.
But that's their expectation and their desire, right? They're willing to do it. They have a need for it, and it's serving that need.
And right, and it isn't like we're just sort of pushing money into the bank account. We're helping them get a medical procedure that they need. So that also sets up a relationship between them and us that's different from just a lender relationship. They equate us with the healthcare treatments that they needed.
What would be your advice for other leaders in improving their company's focus and understanding of a customer?
Well, I think I think senior leaders all get it, right? I mean, you can't run a business and be divorced from your customer. I think in a lot of ways the question is how do you build it throughout the business? Because it is so easy for people who are in a functional job maybe to lose that connection. Well, I'm just a coder, or I'm in accounting. Why should I understand about the customer? So that's why I thought this in-touch sessions of having everybody have some sort of a connection is important. And I think most companies, there's a way to get people out of their job and give them some access to customers. That could be, whether it's, as we did, listening to calls or site visits. And I think every time that I've always done that, people have sort of called me up afterwards and said, "Oh, I'm really glad we did this. I didn't think this would be useful, but now I get it.
Right.
I really have a better sense of why I'm here at work." And I think, we all are dealing with this situation of, what are we? It's not conscious uncoupling. What's the term at the moment where we're quitting on the job?
Unconscious quitting? Is it? No. It's conscious quitting. It's conscious quitting, isn't it?
There it is, something like that.
Right. Quiet quitting. Quiet quitting. That was it. Quiet quitting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so many people are losing their connection with their job. We're on Zoom calls. We're not seeing each other. We're not connecting directly. Those obvious ways that force you to stay engaged aren't there anymore.
Right.
So it is harder to keep people engaged and keep people passionate and keep people connected. And I think this is all part of it. My wife has been, on our vacation over Labor Day. It was her birthday, and as usual, I was spending all my time on Zoom calls. So she spent a lot of time listening in, and she says, "Oh, I didn't quite get what you do. Now I get it. Your whole job seems to be about getting people to be excited about what they're doing and sort of do the best they can." And I was like, that's a pretty good way to put it. And now more so than ever. So I think, it's easy for leaders to think about kind of the economics and the, raising money and all this stuff, but you still have to keep that, how do you get people connected to the customer and feeling passionate and wanting to step up to make a difference in the lives of people they serve.
It's not always easy to understand the customer. I call it the ivory tower syndrome, right? Where we sit in a nice office and we don't necessarily live the life that our customer lives, right? We don't face the same challenges. And on a previous episode, I spoke about the opportunity where we went out and actually it was like a non-prime scavenger hunt where we had to go into a title lending store, go get a loan from a traditional bank. We had to go to a pawn shop, all things that non-prime consumers might be doing. And for me, that was one of the biggest eye openers, right? And that's what drives, I think, really the in-touch sessions 100%. Like hearing your customers, hearing the tone, their concerns, and hearing how they interact and how they make decisions. But absolutely going out and doing some of the activities that they're trying to do in your own space is something that I recommend highly, because it will open your eyes.
Well, I mean, in a lot of ways, that's why I wrote my book here.
Yeah.
Was because innovators, for better or worse, we're a pretty privileged group. And there's not a whole lot of us that have lived paycheck to paycheck and really get it. And I think that's why I tried to write this, to say, let's get the stories out there. Let's have more understanding about the pain that our customers face, whether it's early in life as they're going into college, or the kind of midlife challenges with kids, or the going into retirement challenges. Because that's one thing innovators do really, really well. If they understand pain, they can come up with a solution to that pain. But the pain that you saw when you tried to go to get a title loan or get a check cashed, most people in business don't get that. They don't understand that a large percentage of this country deals with that every day.
Yep.
And once you can circulate and surface those pain points, innovators are really good at getting, aha, I've got a solution.
Right.
And they go in there and they ultimately hopefully make a whole lot of money. So that was sort of what I was trying to do, was let's almost have a source book for here's the 20 pain points that are really impacting this customer base. Somebody's going to figure out how to go after at least a few of them.
Nice. So in your businesses, because you've worked in lending and financial technology, there are obviously regulatory and political pressures that come from the outside, and I found undoubtedly, it's similar to this white tower syndrome. You often have people who look at banks, fintechs, lending companies of all types, and they don't fully understand the products and the customers, and so they try to regulate something that they don't understand. And that creates significant pressure issues for companies that you founded. So how do you think about that? How do you deal with that and innovate through a highly regulated environment?
I mean, that is definitely the challenge, and and just gets in a lot of ways worse and worse each year as political gridlock and sort of the parties moving further and further apart from each other. Makes it hard to have those conversations with regulators around what's this customer facing, and how do we come up with products that are maybe not perfect, but make a positive difference. And we all know the expression, right? Perfect is the enemy of good. I mean, that's definitely the case in politics, where somebody may want to make a sort of a political point about high interest products, and what does that do? It just leads to no credit being available at all. My favorite story was there was the AG of West Virginia. We were talking to one time, and this was somebody who made his entire career on shutting down, higher interest products. And we said, so we get it that you're not a fan of high interest products, but what do you expect people to do if their car breaks down and they need access to credit if it's not available? And I said, well, in West Virginia we have something we call the boot. He didn't really have an accent like that. I don't know. But he's talking about the boot, and we're like, what are you talking about? He says, well, the boot. They stand on a street corner, and with a boot, and people put money in the boot. So that was his answer, was panhandling. And
right.
We're like, well, I think, we may not like higher interest products, but you've got to admit higher interest products is a better solution than panhandling.
For sure.
But that wasn't the way he thought. So, but at the end of the day, you have to engage. You have to tell your story. You may not, get a win. I still remember a board member, brought me in to meet with Elizabeth Warren one time, and I'm pretty sure I didn't change Elizabeth Warren's mind on the financial issues facing non-prime Americans. But you got to do it. You got to be out there, and there is a temptation to just keep your head down. But I think you have to be willing to advocate strongly for your products, even in situations where you may not win anybody over.
And advocate for the customer, because oftentimes they don't understand the customer. So at the end of every session of all the episodes, I like to ask a question about who are 1 to 2 leaders who you've learned from along the way, who have influenced you, either in a good or bad way, and what did they teach you?
Well, I mentioned my visit to Elizabeth Warren. Well, that was due to a really incredible mentor, Bob Johnson. Bob Johnson founded BET, billionaire, but what he always taught me is not to accept limits and to get yourself out there. So he was the one who said, you need to tell this story of this customer base, and I'm going to take you in to see Elizabeth Warren. And I was like, Elizabeth, that's crazy. But he did, and he's very well connected in D.C. Partly because he knows it's so important. He doesn't think about what one does as an executive. It's just about kind of making money. But it is making a societal impact and being connected, with the sort of VCs as well as with DC, if you will. So he's great. And then I think another Johnson, Blake Johnson, he founded a company called Byte. It was actually our first customer at Covered. This guy is the savviest entrepreneur I've ever come across. He started a number of businesses, and he thinks about it like a process. He's the most process-oriented. Most people, and I am this way, you start a business and you sort of react to what happens, and hopefully if you're good and lucky, you end up in a place that kind of works. In fact, we started this business just the week before the pandemic hit. Right. I mean, literally, it was horrible. And so we did a fair amount of course corrections. But this guy thinks it all the way through, and from day one, he's thinking about what it's going to take to build a company that you can sell. And like I said, I've never seen a guy that's this specific and orderly about starting a business, growing a business, not getting distracted by the temptations of having people throw money at you. And that's been something that's happened to so many great businesses. They get sort of sucked up in all of the, we need to have a really huge team, so let's really hire a lot of people because that's important. Right. And, let's have really fancy office space. And, let's not worry about profitability. Let's just grow a big business, right? And then all of a sudden that blows up. And he very disciplined, with all of his businesses. And I really tried to take that into Covered, to not get ahead of myself and be very, very disciplined in how to grow the business. So those are the two people that I think about quite a bit.
That's great advice. Appreciate it. Well, Ken, thank you so much for joining us today. I think we learned a lot about customer centricity. We certainly learned a lot about tightropers and all that you've done in your career to support half of the American population. So thanks again.
No, thank you, Jason. It's fun.
Thanks for listening to the Leader's Perspective podcast, brought to you by Accel Advisors. Visit accel-advisors.com for more information about our growth, turnaround, optimization, risk, and HR advisory services.
The Leader's Perspective is produced by Accel Advisors, LLC,
and is available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.